I never expected a simple Valentine's date to turn into one of the most terrifying nights of my life. It started like any other night out, dressed up, excited, ready to enjoy a few drinks in a sleek Miami lounge. But if I had known what was coming, I never would have walked through those doors. The bartender noticed me immediately. At first, I thought he was watching me. My date, Daniel, was talking, laughing, sipping his whiskey, completely unaware of the way the bartender's eyes never left me, not a casual glance, and just staring. Then, as he handed me my drink, he leaned in close enough that I could feel, "That dress looks amazing on you," he murmured. "You're the most beautiful woman. You're the most beautiful woman here tonight." I froze. His voice wasn't flirty, it was personal, like knew me. I forced a small smile. Thanks." Something about him made my skin crawl. The way he ignored Daniel entirely, like he didn't exist, like this wasn't a date, like I was his. Then, out of nowhere, a second drink slid across the coach on the house. The bartender said, never breaking eye contact, but I hadn't ordered. Another drink, and I wasn't about to take a sip, because deep down I already knew. Something was wrong. I didn't touch the drink. Something deep in my gut told me not to. But Daniel, still oblivious to the tension between me and the bartender, just chuckled. "You got a fan," he joked, nudging me playfully. I forced a laugh, trying to shake off the unease creeping up my spine. But when I glanced back toward the bar, the bartender was still watching, still smirking. "Let's get out of here," I said quickly. We paid the bill and walked out into the warm Miami night. But as soon as we stepped onto the street, I felt it. That prickling sensation on the back of my neck, like we were being watched. I glanced over my shoulder, and my heart stopped. Across the street, partially hidden under a neon sign, stood the bartender, still in his uniform, still staring. "Daniel," I whispered, gripping his arm. "He's here." Daniel turned and frowned. "What the hell? Why would he?" Before he could finish, the bartender moved, not toward us, not away, just slowly shifting, as if testing how we'd react. Panic flared in my chest. I grabbed Daniel's hand and yanked him toward a convenience store down the block. As soon as we stepped inside, I turned to check behind me. The bartender had vanished. For a split second, I let myself breathe. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just a weird coincidence. Then my phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number. "Why did you leave so soon?" I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering. "Daniel," my voice came out shaky. I didn't give him my number. My hands trembled as I gripped my phone. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. I never gave him my number. How did he? Daniel looked over my shoulder, his expression darkening. "Okay, this is messed up. We're getting out of here." He pulled me toward the register, paid for our waters, and led me outside. I forced myself to take a deep breath. The street was empty. The bartender was nowhere in sight. For a moment, I almost convinced myself it was over, that he was just a creep who got off on making women uncomfortable. Then Daniel's grip on my hand tightened. "Don't freak out," he murmured, voice low. "But he's here." I felt my stomach drop. "Where?" I whispered. "Across the street, near that alley." I didn't want to look. I had to look. Slowly, I turned my head, just enough to see him, standing in the shadows, half his face illuminated by a flickering street lamp, watching us, smiling. He knew we saw him. He wanted us to. Daniel yanked out his phone. "I'm calling an Uber. Just stay calm." I nodded stiffly, my pulse hammering in my ears. Minutes felt like hours as we stood there waiting. The bartender never moved, never blinked, just stood staring like he had all the time in the world. Then finally, headlights appeared. Our Uber. Daniel grabbed my hand and we rushed to the car. I barely had time to shut the door before the driver pulled away. I let out a shaky breath, my body trembling. I glanced out the window one last time. The bartender was gone. We didn't speak the entire ride home. My skin still crawled, my body still buzzing with the lingering fear that we weren't safe yet. The moment we got inside, Daniel double-locked the door. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. "Block his number," Daniel said. I nodded and opened the message thread. But before I could hit block, another text appeared. "I'll see you again soon. Next time, no interruptions." I dropped the phone. Daniel picked it up, his jaw tightening. "This guy is insane. We're going to the police first thing tomorrow." I nodded, but I knew the truth. Guys like that don't just stop, and no matter what I did, no matter where I went, he'd be watching. I never expected date night to turn into a fight for survival. It was supposed to be a simple evening, dinner at a steakhouse, a few drinks, and heading home. But that night, I learned how quickly things can go wrong, and how close we came to never making it home at all. Dinner had been great. Jake and I laughed, shared a dessert, and didn't notice how late it had gotten. By the time we stepped out of the restaurant, the parking lot was nearly empty, the streetlights buzzing faintly in the cool night air. That's when I saw it. A white van, parked 2 spots away from our car, engine running. Something about it made my stomach turn. Did that van just pull in? I asked. Jake frowned. Not sure. Why? I couldn't explain it. The lot was mostly empty. Why park so close to us? And why leave the engine running without anyone getting out? As we approached our car, I felt it. Something was wrong. Then the van's side door slid open, and in the dim light, I saw them. 2 men sitting inside, not moving, just waiting. For a second, none of us moved. Jake and I stood frozen, the cold night air pressing in around us. The 2 men in the van just sat there, staring, waiting. A primal fear kicked in. Every instinct screamed at me, "Don't go near that car. Get in now." Jake's voice was low, urgent. He reached for my hand, pulling me toward our car. Then the van's engine revved, not driving away, not pulling forward, just revving, testing us. Jake fumbled for the keys, and my heart slammed against my ribs. I glanced back at the van. The men were shifting. One of them moved closer to the door. The other, he reached for something on the floor. I grabbed Jake's arm. "No, don't turn your back to them." He stopped, eyes wide. We couldn't get in the car. If we did, we'd be trapped. The moment one of us opened a door, they could rush us, or worse, block us in. Jake understood. His hand tightened around mine. Go back inside. Now." The second we turned, the van's door slammed shut. The engine roared, and then it started moving straight toward us. The van lurched forward, rolling toward us at an unsettlingly slow pace. Not speeding, not rushing, just closing the distance, like they wanted to see what we would do. We ran. Jake grabbed my wrist and we bolted back toward the restaurant. My legs burned. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. I refused to look back. The second we reached the doors, I yanked them open and stumbled inside. A few diners glanced up, surprised, but no one understood what had just happened. Jake turned to the hostess. "Call security, now." She blinked, confused. There's a van outside. 2 guys just tried to. A shadow passed by the window, turned just in time to see the white van speeding out of the parking lot. The side door was still shut. No one got out. They didn't need to. They had waited, tested us, and the second we ran, they left. Security searched the lot, but the van was gone. No cameras had caught the plates. It was like it had never been there. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. The fear still clung to me, heavy and suffocating. Out of curiosity, I searched online for white van abductions, and my stomach dropped. Multiple reports, same description, same city, same parking lots. People had been taken, some were found, others weren't. I shut my laptop, my hands ice cold. That van wasn't just a random vehicle. We were supposed to be next. I never expected a simple Uber ride to turn into the scariest night of my life. It was late, past midnight. My boyfriend Liam and I had just left a rooftop bar, tipsy but happy, the city lights buzzing around us. We ordered an Uber like we always did, safe, easy, routine. But that night we almost made a fatal mistake. As we stood on the curb, a black sedan pulled up in front of us. Right make, right model, tinted windows. "That's us," Liam said, stepping toward the car. I hesitated. Something felt off. The driver didn't roll down the window, didn't confirm our names. He just sat there. Liam reached for the door handle, but a wave of panic shot through me. "Wait," I said, grabbing his arm. "Check the app first." He frowned but pulled out his phone. His face fell. Our real Uber was still 3 minutes away. I took a shaky step back, my heart pounding. And in that moment, the car doors locked. Liam yanked. the handle, nothing. The doors wouldn't budge. I pounded on the window. "Let us out!" The driver didn't respond, didn't even look at us. He just drove. Panic surged through me. The city streets blurred as the car sped up, taking a turn away from the main road. "Where is he taking us?" Liam's voice was tight with fear. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking. I tried to dial 911, but the signal dropped to 0 bars. The driver knew what he was doing. I looked up at the rearview mirror, and finally, he spoke. "Relax," he said, his voice calm, too calm. "It's just a misunderstanding." My stomach twisted. No Uber stickers, no GPS on his dashboard. This was no misunderstanding. I exchanged a quick glance with Liam. We both knew we had to get out. The car slowed at a red light. It was our only chance. I gripped Liam's hand. On 3, 1, 2, the light turned green. 3, we threw ourselves against the doors. The doors flung open, unlocked at the last second. Liam and I tumbled out, hitting the pavement hard. Tires screeched as the car swerved, nearly clipping Liam's leg before speeding off into the night. I gasped for breath, my heart slamming against my ribs. People on the sidewalk turned to stare. A man ran over. "Are you okay? What happened?" I could barely speak. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone, fumbling to open the Uber app. Our real driver had just arrived, 3 blocks away, meaning that whoever was in that car had been waiting. For us, no record, no driver, no answers. Liam helped me to my feet. "We have to call the police." I nodded, still trying to catch my breath, but before I could dial, my phone buzzed. A notification from Uber. I clicked it, expecting to see a cancellation notice. But instead my stomach dropped. "Your trip has been completed," my pulse pounded. That wasn't possible. We had never started the ride. There was no record of a driver, no pickup, no drop-off, nothing. Liam saw the screen and went pale. What the hell does that mean? I didn't know, but one thing was clear. We had almost vanished, and no one would have even known where to look. I never liked restaurant restrooms. Something about their eerie silence, the flickering fluorescent lights, the feeling of being completely alone, even when you're not. But that night, in a high-end restaurant with dim chandeliers and velvet-lined booths, I discovered a restroom that was worse than most, because when I knocked on the mirror, something knocked back. It was supposed to be a simple date night. My boyfriend Ryan had surprised me with dinner reservations at one of the nicest restaurants in town. Everything was perfect until I excused myself to the restroom. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. The air was too cold, the room too quiet. A faint, stale scent lingered in the air, like something old and forgotten. Then I saw the mirror, floor to ceiling, perfectly polished, directly facing the stalls. Something about it made my skin crawl. I stepped toward it slowly, my reflection moving with me, but as I got closer, a weird thought itched at the back of my mind. What if it's not just a reflection? I swallowed hard. Then without thinking, I knocked on the glass. Knock, knock, knock. For a second, nothing happened. Then something knocked back. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. It wasn't an echo. It wasn't my imagination. Someone had knocked back. The restroom was empty. I had been alone when I walked in, but now I wasn't so sure. A cold sweat formed at the back of my neck. I forced myself to step forward again, staring at my reflection. Everything looked normal, except for my eyes. There was something off about them, like they weren't just looking at me, but looking past me. I knocked again, softly. This time there was no response. I let out a shaky breath and turned to leave, my hands trembling as I reached for the door handle. Then a whisper, muffled, but close, too close. It was coming from the mirror. I spun around, my pulse hammering. The reflection was normal, no movement, no shadow lurking behind me. But I knew, deep down, I wasn't alone in that room. I bolted out of there, nearly, running into a waiter as I rushed back to our table. Ryan frowned. "You okay?" I forced a laugh. Yeah, just cold in there. But as we ate, I kept glancing back toward the hallway leading to the restrooms. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, and I was about to find out. I was right. I tried to focus on dinner, but my mind kept drifting back to the mirror. The knock, the whisper, that awful crawling feeling that something had been there with me. I needed answers. I flagged down a waiter, a middle-aged man with tired eyes. Hey, can I ask you something? That mirror in the restroom, has anyone ever mentioned anything weird about it? His face changed instantly. For a split second, his polite expression faltered, replaced by something uneasy. I don't know what you mean, he said too quickly. I didn't believe him. Come on, I pressed. I know I heard something in there. He hesitated, glancing around before lowering his voice. You shouldn't have knocked. My stomach twisted. Why? He sighed, shifting uncomfortably. There's something behind that mirror. A chill shot through me. What do you mean? Instead of answering, he gestured toward the restaurant's manager, an older man in a crisp suit. After a hushed conversation, the manager turned to me with a forced smile. Come with me, he said. I followed him down the hall, back toward the restroom. My heart pounded harder with every step. Instead of going inside, he stopped in front of a narrow, unmarked door right next to it. He pulled out a key and unlocked it. Inside was a dark, cramped passageway, and at the very end was the back of the mirror with a small, round peephole. My breath hitched. Is someone back here? I whispered, the horror sinking in. The manager shook his head. Not anymore, but years ago, the owner fired a worker for spying on women through the mirror. He disappeared, but some say he never left. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. I turned back toward the mirror, heart pounding. From this side, I could see straight into the restroom, and then a soft knock echoed from the other side. I ran.